Okay, doc. Okay, so hi to everyone. Especially, I can't see how many of us is at the moment over here, but I guess the numbers will grow as we continue. Welcome to all of you guys who are with us for now. I think this is the fourth one, the fourth session of Canvas Summer Academy for 2021. I want to thank to all speakers, especially Chi and Danilo and Alex. Hopefully he's going to join us in a few. So this one is, I guess, it's the last one for sure, but I guess it's the one that's going to open up and might spark the most of the discussions. And what we are trying to do with these summer academies is to be very up to date in terms of the topic and are trying to pose some questions which presumably are the questions which are bothering the activists and the CSO world in a way that that we are looking into how to offer some sort of topics and then answers, and probably, I'm not saying the full answers, but spark some ideas and some ways to discuss the issues which are ongoing and to see how we can help all of us and all of you in what we are seeing every day, work or struggles, and respectively. I hope that in the nearest future, I'm gonna give a couple of comments in the end, but I hope in a near future we're going to be able to meet in person and keep this in physical space and try to commence much more of discussion and so on. But having these first three meetups and very fruitful discussion and very engaged audience, I hope we can achieve that again. So as we had it before, today my colleagues are here with us, and so the whole Canvas team is going to be at support. Any kind of questions, please raise the hand or just pose the question in a chat room. I'm going to try to be as brief as possible with the guest speakers, and I'm going to try to leave a lot of time, actually the most, to the Q&A. So the program says, as I'm explained and instructed, that we should be finishing in about hour and 15 minutes, not to bother everyone. So I appreciate very much all of you who are waking up early in the morning. For us, it's very nice afternoon, especially for me, because I'm high in the mountains, a very pleasant environment, very pleasant temperature, no heat, sun, yes, though, but actually very, very nice. So thank you, good morning for all those who are waking up at this time to be with us, and hopefully we can kick off. Let me just try to, so this is the overview of the presentations that we have had. And so today we're going to be talking about digital space. That's the title, but mostly we are going to be talking about the threats and opportunities of all issues which are in relation to the digital space and how it reflects to the global activism. More than that, we are focusing on the three main topics, and we have actually very prominent people, and very happy to have these guys with us today, which are very much into the topics they've been discussing. I think the people that you can reference for everything that you can name in terms of the surveillance systems and impacts, about the crypto, about digital security. So we'll try to engage in some of the topics that are becoming increasingly interesting and posing some either threats or opportunities. And the point and the idea of this discussion is to put some light on those, not to give you the full answers, but to make some sort of more understanding of where we are going and what we are doing. And maybe this is going to be of the help to all of us to come up with some ideas for the future discussions, and to see how we can unveil some of the secrets of this. The last year on my workshop in I think it was the third session of the Canvas Summer Academy, I had Will Dobson, and Will Dobson wrote a great book, Dictators' Learning Curve, and the main point from the book that I really liked was the issue about how dictators do tend, and the governments do tend to learn about how to crack down on the activists, on the movements. But the point was that the activist world, it's very innovative, it's very diverse, and so that we as an activist so far have managed to keep ourselves one or two steps ahead of the governments, coming up with the new ideas and the new ways of operating in order to keep and sustain the struggles or the programs we are on. So The idea for today discussion was that first we discuss about the crypto, the blockchain, and so we're going to be trying to explore the opportunities in this sphere for the activists and the activist world. And first of all, I wanted to talk a bit about the ongoing issues and dilemmas. You know, how safe, how unsafe, how to defend from all these different accusations we are seeing coming from the governments about money laundering. We have had a couple of frauds. Some of the crypto exchanges have been defaulting by owners actually escaping and taking billions with them in dollars denominated values of crypto value. Also, I wanted to talk about the blockchain as its own. Like, what kind of opportunities does it represent for the activists? You know, whether any systems we can actually utilize on a blockchain, and you know, these diverse system of the support for any kind of app or whatever we use, the blockchain is probably the future for it. So that was the kind of the issue. Also, the story about some of the organizations which are already operating by using the crypto money, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever you want. So how does that work? So I hope Alex is going to join us. If not, I guess we have you know, we'll find a way how to tackle that as well. So the second point was the ongoing issue, which is becoming increasingly more of the concern. And I don't think that too many of us actually point some, you know, had ideas about it. But just to give you the hint, like Belgrade, Serbia. Belgrade recently launched something that was called Smart City program. And under the Smart City program, one of the component of that, it's installing about 1,500 cameras. Not any cameras, actually very sophisticated cameras. So that system has been deployed by Huawei and Dahua, both Chinese companies. So the government even deployed a special frequency spectrum to connect all of those cameras. But as I understood, and we're going to have a great speaker to comment on that, these systems are capable of doing so many things that it's becoming actually very frightening in a way of you know, monitoring and how can detect individuals and how they can monitor our moves and what we do and how we operate, to the point they're not actually just recognizing the plates, they're actually having the face recognitions and knowing, for example, that as I understood from my friends from the Belgrade government, this software actually resides in a cloud, means it's actually accessible from the Beijing. So guess what, guys? If you come to Belgrade, there's a great chance that the Chinese government can actually understand immediately where you are if you come to Belgrade, whom you're meeting, and what's your pattern of the commuting, which is becoming the issue under the COVID especially. And many governments are using that as an excuse by saying, you know, we're trying to just break and maintain the social distance, as they call it, throughout the COVID times. But obviously there is a great concern, and we need to discuss that a bit. And then as the last but not least point, I wanted to talk about digital security threats, and something that's been ongoing already. The US has been on the forefront of that. There are NGOs, and you know, we already have the NGOs which are even the NGOs for profit or for-profit organizations which are professionally helping the CSOs. They're coming up with the systems, instructions, and I wanted to talk to our speaker, whom I'm going to introduce as well, who's been training, consulting, and organizing these kind of programs to prevent these kind of intrusions, or to maintain the communications at least on the safe side. So, but this is something obviously that every organization that's in a business of training, passing on the knowledge, is trying right now to include the curriculum on how to defend and how to protect the secure content or the communications that activists use. So moving down just over these topics, let me let me just briefly introduce who we have. So Chi is a long-lasting friend. We know Chi from a long time. We worked with Chi as a canvas. We worked in Vietnam. We worked on many different forefronts. Chi is a great researcher. She's been doing extensively artificial intelligence and mass surveillance China and by Chinese companies globally. She's a great human rights advocate. She's been working with us on our South Asia program. Chi, as I long time understood, has been actually doing a lot of different shows. She's been actually trying to advocate for a lot of Asian and Australian organizations. And I think in terms of the topic that that I just mentioned, which is about surveillance and everything like that, she's going to be with us, and she's going to actually give us some good ideas where we are going. And I'm going to try to keep this discussion about pointing some of the issues which I think are growing lately. Danilo is here as well. Danilo has been, from his last name, you can understand he's a Serb as well, right? It's Serbian, I would say, predominance uh, over these several topics. But Danilo is a consultant, expert, and I would say a great teacher, instructor when it gets to the digital security, the cybersecurity issues. He's been running on different programs with IREX, with Partners Globals. He's been working with different CSOs around the world, even from the times of the Freedom House. If I remember, Danilo, he has been designing the programs on, for the CSOs in very difficult environments on how to protect their websites, their content, to distribute that, and to keep and find the resources which actually can help against the intrusions or the hacking of the systems that most of the activists usually use. Now, the deal with Danilo is, which I think it's very great, is that these are the latest toolkits, and we're going to be talking about those, and we'll try to keep up and bring some of the latest that's happening in that field. So I'm not going to take too much time. So I understand, Yelena, we are still missing Alex, right? So let's move with Chi. If you are okay, we would like to start with issues that I just explained. And I understand that you do have the presentation to share with us, or not?
Okay, first I've got to unmute myself. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
Yes.
good. All right, so Alex not here, so I have the honor of starting off the session. So bear with me, and I hope crypto market is not crashing somewhere, or that's why
Crypto is
Alex
actually
is held
doing
up.
very well lately in the last few days. It's a bull market again. But let's go
Really?
on the surveillance. I mean, I just explained what's going on in Belgrade, and that's a great concern. And just to give you the hint before you start, that's actually becoming the hot issue that no one discusses in Serbian media. So media are not covering that. But we even had the issues that our government officials have been surveilled by obviously some non-state stakeholders through the system which has been implemented by these Chinese companies. And I'm not just saying Chinese is the issue, probably the rest of the world is trying to do the same. But we're obviously having and living in the era where the system can actually detect everything we do. And it's getting to the proportions which are very, very concerning. So please.
I can't agree with you more, Slovo. I think repressive governments, and I think Serbia, under this current government is moving from democratic to somewhere I would call a hybrid government. So autocratic, democratic, hybrid, they all have strong incentives, to use digital tools at and they have so many at their disposal. And I'm sure Danilo is going to enlighten us. But just to build on what you've said before, I think, we activists living in this digital age, we have a lot of opportunities, just as you said. But again, with advanced technology, repressive governments, they also have a lot more, at their disposal to suppress us. So similarly to the system that they set up in Serbia, we've got governments, from Europe, from Africa, from Southeast Asia to the Middle East. They set up, these tools so that they can identify us, follow us, track us everywhere we go. They single out activists. They monitor political opponents. They suppress journalists. They counter dissenters, and they basically undermine our civil and political liberties. So to start us off, I thought, within 8 minutes that I'm given by Yelena, I'm going to try and cut through some of the slides on China. There has been a lot of research done on China. So, and I've talked about this last year, so I don't want to bore anybody who's returning this year for this summer academy. So I'm going to fly right through them. So I've cut down my presentation into 4 parts. So I think I'm going to just go through the good, the bad, and the ugly use of biometric surveillance. And I think Slobo touched on what biometric surveillance is, but I'm going to just go over them again really quickly. And then I will just give you real life examples of, countries that are using mass surveillance tech. And hopefully we will, see why we should be concerned. And then the last 2 slides, I'm thinking of maybe touching on what activists and other civil society organizations have been doing, um, either to evade mass surveillance, face recognition, or stop mass surveillance altogether. And then for discussion, maybe if we have time, I will just throw out some ideas, and then you can tell me whether or not we can join forces and push back. So I think all of you might have already know, but I'm just going to cover my bases by just saying that's, you know, mass surveillance is just one of the many different techniques out there. And I think Alex or sorry, Danilo is going to touch on them. So I'm going to go through them really fast. So there are totally maybe 6 techniques, as far as we know. There may be more by tomorrow. With advanced technology, we will never really, be able to catch up with them. So surveillance is one, censorship, cyber attacks, targeted persecution against online users, social manipulation and harassment. And when all else fails, what they do, they simply pull the plug, and what we get is internet shutdowns. So depending on different governments, they use different tactics. Sometimes they use them all together, sometimes interchangeably, sometimes, depending on the objectives that are aiming for. So I can sum up that typically there are 3 key areas when you look at it. When governments deploy AI mass surveillance, they are usually, these three. Whether they are from, autocratic or democratic or hybrid states, more and more law enforcement, they are using artificial intelligence and algorithmically driven tools for crime intervention. And I think that's the most well accepted by the people, because we tend to think that, uh, the governments are using it to catch the bad guys, and with predictive policing technologies, serial rapists, missing children, real criminals may get caught faster, and that's for our own protection. So many of these technologies, the predictive policing, crime intervention tools, they are based on risk modeling. So individuals are identified and ranked, or sometimes they profile, these individuals according to the likelihood that they may engage in criminal activity. The second is in the provision of essential services and support. So if you've got countries in Indonesia, Singapore, the Philippines, a lot of these governments, and I bet in Serbia as well, they increasingly use automated systems run by algorithms and machines to vet applications and make decisions whether to provide essential services, such as social assistance or welfare, to applicants. But there have been quite a number of cases in Denmark and Finland. If we have time during our Q&A, I can share with you how these can go awfully wrong, and discrimination and violations of human rights occur because, of a biased automated system. And the third area that usually AI is being used is to control the border, or movement control in general. And this is where AI in the form of facial and gait recognition, you've got retinal, iris, fingerprint scans, ground sensors, even aerial video surveillance drones. biometric databases and automated asylum decision-making process. They are used in immigration context, and that's why in our 21st century we've got something that we call the digital borders. So the reason why I'm sharing these three main areas where mass surveillance is being deployed is because I want activists out there, whether you live in autocratic or hybrid states, you should be on alert. Whenever you simply fill out an application for, let's say, social assistance or whatever you need to, whether at your bank or at a social agency, or even when you move about in your own neighborhoods, or you travel across the country or across the borders, like Slobo mentioned before. If I travel to Serbia, probably, all of my biometric data might have been stored, flagged, accessed, and shared, between my government and Serbian authorities. So, which countries are using biometric surveillance? So we have so many out there, but out of the 176 countries that were surveyed, there were at least 75 countries that have been using AI surveillance capabilities, and they do so in three forms. Safe city platforms, just like in Serbia, they have the smart city there, face recognition systems, and smart policing. So I don't know if some of you may still remember, but in the Wall Street Journal and the Associated Press, I think, both of them reported on how Chinese technicians from Huawei helping government security forces in Uganda, and Slobo also mentioned this in Serbia, and they installed advanced facial recognition cameras for surveillance. But that's more or less, more recent. But if you think back, and this is what, was really scary and not many of, our people out there, activists out there were aware of at the time. But you remember the Arab Spring that was back in 2010, I think, over 10 years ago. There was a French company called the Amesis. They sold surveillance software to Libya's dictator Gaddafi, and in 2014, they sold the same to Egypt. You remember our Egyptian president, Abdel al-Sisi? He took control of Egypt after a military coup. So this surveillance software, they enabled these dictators to listen in on internet traffic and identified activists and protesters, and it led to the crushing of the opposition, torture, and disappearance of dissidents, among other human rights abuses. The company has since then it changed its name from Amesis to Nexa Technology. But last week, if you followed the court in Paris, there was a Paris Judicial Court. They indicted several senior executives, including both the former and the current presidents of the company, for complicity in acts of torture, for selling spy and surveillance technology to Libya and Egypt. This is rare because this happened, over a decade ago. But I think this is one of the right moves that right groups out there. Now they're resorting more and more to the courts to bring the bad guys, to accountability, and also seeking justice for victims. So we also have in Myanmar, talking about the military coup in February this year, there have been a total of 335 cameras with face recognition capabilities, and they were installed before the military coup in December 2020. So that's why there was this theory that the Chinese has been behind, and they might have been, helping the junta, right before the military coup appeared on media. What is the word I'm looking for? Radar. So these cameras were set up by our same, Huawei, the Chinese tech giant, and these smart surveillance systems were installed in the Myanmar capital at a cost of some 2.9 million US dollars. And then since December of last year, more contracts have been signed between Huawei and the Burmese government. And they have more safe city projects there with biometric surveillance systems that have been laid out in other parts of Myanmar, including 3 out of Mandalay's 7 townships. There has been more recent research. And I think even now, after the military coup in Myanmar, the media has also picked up on China's flight cargoes spotted at Myanmar's airport shortly after the February 1st, the coup. And there has been speculation that China is providing more surveillance technology to the junta. Thailand is one of the worst scoring Asian nations. So earlier this year, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, he had 5,000 surveillance camera installed in Bangkok alone. Okay, India 3,000 surveillance cameras at 720 locations in Varanasi, and that was part of the Smart City project. And among other devices, there were also some 22 facial recognition cameras, and that was connected to their Kashi integrated command control. And so this whole surveillance system, parts of the smart city, it cost India $17.4 million. And if you just think, if the government could have used that, resource, that much budget for other things that would do some good for, Indian people, that would have been a lot more worthwhile. So in Tibet, last May, Huawei, again, this name you are going to hear more and more frequently, together with China Telecom, they set up on Mount Everest the world's highest 5G base station at an altitude of 6,500 meters. So this 5G network at that altitude is capable of powering the precise monitoring for artificial intelligence, expanding the scale and the scope to deploy sensors to transmit high volumes of data for real-time analysis really quickly. In the UK, surveillance system has been in use since 2016 at sports matches, concerts, shopping centers, main streets, carnivals, protests, you name it. These automated facial recognition systems would, I think it costs about £2 million and is all funded by the Home Office. And in 2018 alone, the Greater Manchester Police, they used the technology at the Trafford shopping center, and they biometrically scanned some 15 million people over a period of 6 months before the surveillance camera commissioner intervened. So you can see that high-tech surveillance is a multi-billion-dollar industry worldwide, and these repressive tools and advanced technology are developed and sold to autocratic regimes. But I mentioned a lot about China, but to be fair, it's not just China who is the supplier, even though China is one of the leading supplier of mass surveillance tools, but Russia, Israel, Germany, the UK, the US, Spain, France, they're all, in this market. So what is the impact of mass surveillance on activists? From just a few examples that I was able to share with you, you get the sense that these tools can be invasive, but they are also pervasive. And I don't have time to go into more details, but I just wanted to list some of the specific, uh, negative things that mass surveillance is doing to all of us. So one is the surveillance of protesters and civilians, which is very obvious. And I name some of the specific countries there. Wrongful arrest of innocent individuals in the US, in Argentina, in Brazil, surveillance of ethnic religious minorities, such as the Uyghurs, the Tibetans in China, Thailand as well, Italy, and all of them are violations of our rights. And I name just 3 here. First of all is the violation of rights to privacy, free assembly and association, the rights to equality, non-discrimination, and to due process and freedom of movement. But there are many, many more. So that would bring me to almost the end of my presentation. So the dangers of AI mass surveillance, and I listed here, some of the reasons, and they are quite obvious why we should all be concerned. Okay, so now I can say fairly that we are living in a new era of biometric surveillance technologies. None of us is truly free and anonymous anymore in public spaces, not on our streets, not at train stations, not at protests, concerts, sport events, and definitely not on social media, and definitely not on our global community that we call Facebook. Have you heard a lot about the data leak and things from Facebook recently? So these biometric mass surveillance technologies, they enable companies, agencies, and the authorities to track us based on our unique personal data and identify us whenever and wherever we are. Data collection has been used to specifically target dissidents, activists, marginalized populations, such as Uyghurs that I mentioned, the Rohingya, Black Americans, and undocumented immigrants. So the implementation of these technologies involve significant racial bias, and there's a high error rate on people of color, especially women of color, resulting in innocent people being stopped, searched, and even arrested. And even if they are accurate, face recognition empowers a law enforcement system with a long history of racist and anti-activist surveillance can exacerbate pre-existing inequalities. So this is why, despite widespread adoption, face recognition was recently banned, thank God, for use by police and local agencies in several cities in the US. And I could name right off the top of my head Boston and San Francisco, among many others. So there's also the danger of China's data harvesting activities that siphon back to the CCP millions of biometric and personal data of people around the globe, Serbia included, as Lobo mentioned before. And you must have heard of the Zenhua data leak. Um, and so experts out there warn us that this China style of mass surveillance can turn citizens into walking ID cards, and CCTV cameras can turn into biometric checkpoints. Okay. I have a lot more slides on China, but I'm going to skip right through them. But I don't want to cut them out because I think for people who want to know more about how aggressive these invasive digital tools can be, especially those who are equipped and provided by China. I want to keep them here and you can read them on your own time. They're pretty straightforward. Uh, Recently, smart TVs in China can scan people's Wi-Fi and their connected devices every 10 minutes and send back information, where they're surfing, what websites they're on, how long they've been, and all of these data has been sent back to an analytic company called Gozen. So I just want to leave that in there, but I'm not going to go through them. Okay, and so it's just because I just want you to be aware of the dangers of China's exported authoritarianism. Okay.
Thank you, Chi. I,
Oh,
I,
can I just
yeah,
go back here just for 1 minute and then I'm done? So I just want to put out there, I don't want to scare people to the point where they say, oh my God, what are they doing to us? I want to put it out there and just like I repeat this over and over with our activists in Zimbabwe last year. Yes, mass surveillance is real. The risks are high and they're very invasive. But in order for them to be effective, it requires major resources and domestic, capabilities. Okay, so in order to be able to do this, the government must have a security force that is loyal, that's well trained, and they are high tech, savvy people. Um, and they also have to have a command control that is able to, go through, sort out all of the data that they've been collecting. And not every government has that kind of human resources and tech capacity that China has. Okay. So it's crucial for us to know what is real. And we have to be able to distinguish between real threats and what we call the security theater. It's just an illusion that the governments want to know to cast onto activists or all of us that there are security risk for self-censorship. So just imagine if Myanmar, people in Myanmar, they know that there are surveillance cameras out there, even though the government hasn't been able to fully put them at use. But just the mere thought of being able to, capture, your biometric data through these cameras, it can cause a chilling effect, and it may stop some people from speaking out or taking to the streets. So that is something that activists out there should be aware of. Okay. So I'm not going to go through these, and I'm going to end it there. And then maybe we can take up, any area of interest that you may want during our Q&A period. Thank you, Slobo. I'm done.
Thanks,
Sorry.
thanks, too. I mean, it took a bit longer, but it was really very informative and it's great presentation. So hopefully we can share this with the people present over here and those who are interested in. There are several questions which you pretty much answered, all of them throughout your explanation. There is only one that is coming to my mind. I mean, is there any like global, like UN or similar act that regulates the level and the amount of surveillance? I know local governments individually and respectively do have their own laws on that, but is there any document we can refer to that, like what's really allowed, what's not allowed? Because obviously it seems, as you said, that we are actually facing a lot of biometric checkpoints every minute. We are walking around and without our knowledge that the data it's taken.
Did you just ask me about laws
Yeah,
existing
yeah, like is there
to
any
control?
international law, legislature, or the United
Oh,
Nation, instructions or acts on that? Like we're seeing that U.S. China war on basically these companies which are providing these AI video surveillance systems. But just shortly, like is there anything that we as an activist can refer to once addressing these issues?
there have been a few that has been going through Congress in the US. I think it's called the Digital Act, but I don't think it's moving much farther since then. The European countries, the EU, they are like the pioneer in this area. There have been some laws in the works, but nothing has been, carved in stone just yet. But there have been some works in that area because people start to realize if we let these autocratic or, even democratic governments go, without any legislative overseeing body, things may get worse. So there have been some work there, but nothing that, is very promising just yet. But
Yeah.
works has been in the work.
So that may be one of our future Canvas Summer Academy topics, on the legislation and what kind of countermeasures we can strive for.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely, definitely.
Looking for the Q&A, guys. Anything you have to ask or any kind of comments, please do type Q&A or chat. I'm just following. There's some discussion going on. And moving on to Danilo. Danilo, thank you for participating and sorry for waiting. So please do, I understand you have several slides to share with us. And so my intro is simple. So there are already several questions that people asked over here, like how we can defend ourselves in this digital era when everything's getting digital, and like I've just recently watched the HRF movie on the murder of Khashoggi journalist, and I was amazed to the level of ability of certain government. I think it was Saudi Arabia, who was able to actually utilize these malwares and stuff and send to the people, like even Joseph Bezos, and hack on their phones and get their, his communication and use it, against him in tabloids and stuff. So it's getting scary. So how can we get ourselves a bit more secure, and how do we behave in this environment, which is increasingly intrusive?
Thank you, Slobo. I wanted to backtrack. I'm working for a long time, and I wanted to tackle the topics that are usually overlooked and overshadowed by the technology and advance of the technology and the tools and tools and tools. And I just want to highlight a couple of challenges that I observed working, I would say, a solid time with the civil society globally, and bring those problems, since I want to tackle it from the organizational perspective. Like personal perspective, that's the one thing. When you want to take care of your own digital well-being, which we have one question on, that's one thing. But when you're a member of the organization movement or a larger, endeavor, then the security is a shared responsibility. And basically, you are the strong as your weakest link is, and within the organized or organization or a movement, the things are a bit different. People need to basically behave, use tools, or follow the protocols, policies, and procedures that they agreed on, because it is really important. We heard from the first speaker, Chi, the surveillance and the AI and the use, it is really scary. I'm going to backtrack to more traditional things, but what I wanted to kick off really to say, one thing that didn't change is basically, like the civil society, if I need to average the civil society globally that I work with, and civil society is a quite large term. It can involve organizations working on the education, healthcare issues, but as well the human rights issues, or independent media, or, like basically human rights. Now, of course, those that are working, depending on the environment that they're working on the controversial topics in their respective environments, are usually targeted by non-state or state actors. But one thing that they're facing, and what I need to say is basically as well, me working for the international organization like IREX, like we as organizations and the donors especially, we need to be cognizant that basically when the funds are provided, it's not only towards the stated missions and the project, that there needs to be a resource dedicated to basically overhead or operational costs that will enable those organizations to tackle some of the issues, including the digital security. It shouldn't be afterthought. It's not only about the trainings, no, not at all. It is about the strategic approach from the organizational perspective to tackle the risk management. And risk management include digital, but include physical. That's something that Carlos do, and I'm going to touch upon that. But those are like all, parts that are integral. So basically, that's the first thing. Organizations lack the capacity. Capacity can be either in the terms of the professional staff. Do they have the IT department? If they don't have the IT department, do they need to outsource the IT? And if they do, outsource to whom? Can you trust the outsourced IT company in a given environment that you're operating based on the problems that you're tackling in your country? For example, you use a case point Serbia. Like if I would need to outsource IT services in Serbia, who do I trust? Because I'm inviting the third-party company that I don't know. For the money, they are going to maintain my systems. But it means like, if they are pressured by the non-state actors or the government, why they would bother over the contract that is worth whatever it is worth. So those things are intrinsic and they didn't change. They are much better because I think that the funding community, from the private foundations, from the government fundings, from the EU and United States, did tackle this problem, but we are always somehow one step back because the adversaries are advancing much faster. And let's not forget, they have the physical power, which I'm going to touch as well upon that. But basically, that is one thing. Second problem is like, we need to know that, for example, organizations, especially in very tough environments, the staff of those organizations, they basically not only that basically they need to take care of the security of their organization, but they're as well, depending on the social context and inherited safeguards in that country. For example, seizure of the equipment, what are the regulations there? I mean, how the law enforcement can seize your equipment, attorney-client privilege, there are many things that basically civil society faces as a problem. And second, not only that they need to take care of the security of their organizational resources, but as well about their family members. So them being involved in something that is basically, controversial, whatever the issue that they're tackling, controversial from their, let's say, government's perspective, not only that they take care of the organizational security, but the well-being and security of their family members, which puts additional strains on the activists and the people. And then, when we come to the closing spaces, which are, very difficult environments to operate, it really depends, those things that are affected, what do you do, and who is upset about your work, and who's your enemy. And just from the first, speaker presentation, we saw how complex things can be. Slobo, you mentioned a couple of things as well. You mentioned the malware and all the stuff. Those things are quite serious. States are quite powerful. They are obtaining the tools that enables them under the auspices of the national security, which some government imports the particular surveillance solution, software, platform tool, and under the auspices of the national security, which is hard to argue depending on the political context in the country, can be misused against the political opponents and enemies, whether, and against the civil society, which is happening. And you made one case point. There is many of those across the board.
And what do we do about it? How can we get ourselves, do I need to reformat my phone every day? What do I do? Because basically they can do whatever they want by expecting me to behave like normal customer, like normal user, right? And so by doing something which I normally do, I can get myself exposed. So I guess many of our people around here would like to know, where to go, what to read, or what to do. If you have any suggestions.
I'll come to the read at the end. I'll come to the two resources at the end. I will just recommend two. There is many resources out there. I do not endorse a single one. I like those two, but there is so many out there, and I can recommend a wider list. But I'm going to choose two that are very interactive and for all kind of levels of knowledge. But let me just say a couple of things, what is and to build on the things this is from the Microsoft latest report from the last year and the last year. When we look only at their tracking, because they're a company that provides certain solutions, and I can say the civil society is using their technology to do their work, whatever organizations are working on. And if you can see that 33% of the nation state actions against the potential targets was against the nonprofits. So nonprofits are high value target of many of those nation state actors. And you can see this is a Microsoft kind of a codifying of the players, and those are the most prominent ones. Those are the ones that are well researched and documented. North Korea, Russia, Iran, China. But again, and each security company will have their own nickname for the groups. But anyway, 33%, it is the top of the line. Civil society is a target, no question about it. Now, one thing that I want to say, and that is a very important point. Let's not forget, technology is the one thing. Slobo, and you ask one thing, but let's not forget the legal frameworks, the legal environment. And you mentioned the book from Lou Dobbs. Dictators are copy-pasting the legal frameworks that basically enables them to put the additional pressures or a control or do that, then let's not forget, they have a physical force as well. And this cartoon basically depicts like you can use the tool, whatever you want tool. You can use end-to-end encryption. The moment I'm arrested, for example, in Iran, and I'm brought to the interrogator, I will get the empty sheet, and he will ask me to put like all of my accounts with the passwords. And I will ask audience, what do you think would happen to me if I refuse to do that in the country like that? So pretty much, let's not forget, technology is not panacea for everything. We can protect ourselves, but again, we don't have a protection in the scenario that I just kind of highlighted out. This is the funny take on the very serious topic. And then the things that I want to kind of put for the discussion as well, or for people to think like long way. And those are like the bolden things. Digital security is a human problem. And that's in my observations looking at the organizations, it's not a tech problem. Organizations, are comprised from the individuals, our behaviors, how we interact with the technology, what we do with it, and basically how do we behave? What is our awareness about the chats and the things? What is our understanding of the technology? What technology does? I mean, phone is like stores and produces a lot of data about you just every day, like geolocations, all the things. So digital security is first human problem, not a technology problem. It's not just a good practice. It is increasingly mission critical. More and more, we rely on technology in our work. And basically, digital security, alongside the other things that Canvas is teaching people about, which is basically how to organize, how to develop protocols, how to communicate in the offline world, how to organize, how to build the campaigns, all those things come together and are very, very important. So basically, I will not speak more about that. And then I want to underline the digital security is institutional. It's not a responsibility of the one person or that techie in the organization, or it's only IT department. All of us in any type of the organizing, is it a formal or informal, we do have responsibilities if we want to communicate and preserve the safety and privacy of our communications and the things that we do. So basically, it's really important to know that it is a shared responsibility. So now, Slobo, you asked about a couple of things, and I'm going to share now two tools with the share screen option, just to give people something to. Let me just see to switch new share, and then it's going to be window. Just a second. So the first resource, and probably, can you see the page? It's Electronic Frontier Foundation. Can you see the share?
Surveillance self-defense, right?
Yes, exactly. It's basically Electronic Frontier Foundation. It's for all levels. You can find many interesting topics from the beginner to the end. You have a tool guides if you're new to security, teaching security to others, which is very important when it comes to the education within the movement, within the organizations. Peer-to-peer learning exchange is really important. So basically, I would recommend highly that as a first resource. And the second one is kind of a more interactive. It's called Security Planner. And basically, Security Planner is something that is kind of point and click. So basically, you can basically elect like your profile and what do you want to secure. It's kind of a point and click, and it's very interactive. So which of the following you use, and then you kind of select. Oh, I'm iPhone and iPad, or Android. So you select and you go kind of point and click scenarios, which will. It's very nice way to poke you if you're a beginner, like where to go, what to pay attention to, and where to educate yourself. I'll say this thing. I mean, security costs like either the money that you pay somebody to take care of your security, or costs time that you invest in yourself and educate yourself about the security.
I think
enough to protect the
You're having big problems following you. There are some interruptions, I guess, because of too many screens open or something on your computer or the stuff that you share. So we can just get back, yeah, and try to go.
Okay, sorry, I don't know how much choppy it was, but anyway,
We understood.
so yeah, and what I would say, so basically, in my view, security is not just an afterthought. It's not a matter of a training or two, especially in the organizational environment. It's approach, it's strategic choice, what technologies you use to do your primary mission. Like where do you go? Is it the Office 365? Is it Google? Whatever the tools you want to use to make you productive, do your thing. All those things have implications, how to secure, what to do.
Does that behavior or the culture really assumes that we should hire the CSOs for our organization, that we should, get ourselves like, should we look for the security operations? Like, is that like a need? Is that a must for every organization today, or is there any?
It's not a must. It's not a must, Lobo. I think the first step of every organization is just risk planning, as for anything else. And I don't think that organizations do need CSO. Great, if they have a resources, they want to have one and they consider. And I know some organizations that basically have that, that are not international, but they recognize that they need to have somebody really responsible to basically track and do that across the board in the organization. And that comes in the conflict environments that includes a lot of physical protection and physical security, but as well the digital, like Syria case in point, humanitarian organizations operating on the border inside Syria, etc., etc. You really do have such a position.
Is there an organization that we can turn to, that we can go and seek for these kind of advices? Just simply not in hiring our own security officers, or just.
So basically, what my project does, that's for example what we do try to do. So we work in the phase one of the project with 30 CSOs globally. We are now working with another 30 where we kind of engage long term, and our goal is to basically help them basically be able on their own alongside with us to basically plan and mitigate the risks, build their own inside security programs, awareness programs for all the employees, volunteers, whatever. Now, depends the organization. Now, we are not the only one in this space. That there was a large investment. There was an Internet Freedom Festival. There is many organizations that basically do things, different things. My project kind of takes this approach that we, alongside with the organization, we do the risk assessment of the things where they are currently. Alongside them, we do the risk assessment of everything, of their systems, everything that they use, their organization, etc., etc. Then we sit down with them, analyze the problems, and then we decide which problems we will help them to elevate and which problems maybe we will not, but we can point them to the right sources and the things. Usually we try to address all. And then basically in that process, we are building the capacity within the organizations for different organizational functions. And then, towards the end, we help them. We even embark on the beta project now. We are trying to use the corporate solutions for the civil society in the terms of the staff education. Now, instead of so beside the trainings that are not problem to be organized, but we are going with this micro learning thing. So we are going to do the phishing simulations. So basically, we would, alongside with the organization point of contact, simulate the phishing campaigns. That means that they're very well crafted, that they're targeted against the organization. And then all those things basically are coupled with the learning management systems that are basically, employee will spend maybe an hour or two per month in an entire month on the key topic of that month that we are going to tackle. That is going to be interactive, not boring, and not taking too much time, but basically something that Fortune 500 companies are doing and paying a lot of money. So we partnered with one of the private companies, and that's how. And then we are trying to build that with them, and then let them manage and take that program on their own, because it's very easy.
So can we say to the people over here, like if they have this kind of specific need, or they have, you know, concerns, or they want to build their own IMS internally, you know, in their organizations, how to behave, what to do to protect themselves, would it be feasible to turn to you guys, and you know, you get like fair amount of instructions, or probably the training or something that would give them sufficient ground to build their own capacities to defend?
Well, I would recommend. So first of all, I would start with the things that are research on their end. Basically, the two resources that I shared, and I can share many others to be shared after the meeting. Yes, we are the one, but in the research, they are going to identify the other players in the space that are doing that. Some players are more focused on the physical and digital, but physical in first. Some players do psychosocial, physical, and digital. We do only digital work, like for example, understanding. But yeah, I mean, we can be one of the resources, and we can be reached out as one of the players. But we are not the only one. And again, I would say going to the website Internet Freedom Festival, iff.org. I think it's the so there is a community of practice that was built in the last 10 years with the support of US funding, EU funding. So
we can hear you clearly, but you said international festival. What's the name?
Internet Freedom Festival.
Okay, Internet Freedom Festival. Okay, cool. Good. Thank you so much. I think this is super interesting, and I think you're giving us a lot of interesting information and suggestions. And I think there is a lot to think about it. You know, when I first time thought about Canvas, for example, I understood that how fragile we are and how fragile our communication is. And I think it's not so difficult to introduce the simple rules, the set of, you know, behavioral attitudes towards security. And I think at that point, I'm having, yeah, okay, now I did have a background. I think now it's okay. So the third topic for today was the issue about the digital currencies, about the crypto, and we wanted to discuss the use and give a basic introduction to that. I guess Alex is not with us, right? Okay. Well, Alex is actually, it's to be fair, it's 6 a.m. over there. So at that point, I think that the best thing, the best for us is just not to go too much into it. I myself, I can give you guys a brief idea. I know Danilo can do a lot, but let's not go into details, because for sure we are not the experts in the level that this discussion would require. I just want you to think about it, because there is ongoing debate and discussion. And in my mind, in my opinion, you know, when I'm seeing all these videos, people advocating for crypto and those being against, usually the governments and big bankers, I sometimes, you know, forgive me for saying it, but I have a feeling that the Fourth World War is going to start about that, you know, on the issues of cryptocurrency and whether this is a distributed system that's liberal, that's super, you know, safe and secure. On the other side, the government's being on very negative note towards that. And so in relation to what Chi said about the IA, I mean, we are recently seeing that China is cracking on all of its domestic miners, which were the biggest group of the miners basically doing and producing the Bitcoin or the cryptocurrencies. But to give you guys just an idea, the blockchain, it's a simple explanation. It's a distributed system. It's like cloud system that utilize your processing time of your computer. So if you want to add your computer to these global network of the computers connected, which are then used for different apps which are operating on it, then in order, you know, in return to that, if you commit your computer, not to say the graphic card for now, but now actually a lot of blockchains are operating on the processing resources. So if you commit your computer to contribute to that mass network of the infrastructure, then once your computer gets into it and it's verifying data transactions of the apps which are using that blockchain infrastructure, you are rewarded with the coins. And that's what cryptocurrency is. So basically reward for your machine that's contributing to this global network on which many apps are sitting, you get coin in return. And the main proponents for crypto are saying it's similar to gold. It is very different from the paper money because it has a backing, and it has a backing in processing time, in energy that it consumed in order for that coin to be mined, for that coin to be distributed for you, because your computer it's doing all the processing and it's basically supporting that blockchain transactions. So there is the whole debate whether it's safe or not from the point of a lack of regulation. Then on the other side, proponents are saying, well, the lack of regulation is what's making it worthwhile of pursuing with it, because it's not controlled by the central banks. So China going against the crypto miners, and this is not the first crack. I think it's the second one, and I think the first one happened after the huge boom of the value of Bitcoin, first of all. And then US introducing the policy that every buy on the crypto exchanges, which is bigger than $10,000, should be notified the central bank through the commercial banks or crypto exchanges. So the governments are trying to add new legislation. But the one thing that's striking me, which I think is very interesting, on one side, China saying, like, we are going to be cracking on miners. These guys are advancing very much on the crypto yuan, right? They're actually coming up with their cryptocurrency. And so Xi can actually agree with me, I guess, that this is only for the purpose of actually wider control. So we have the new strive in this whole world, which now the governments are trying to use to actually establish more of the control of the financial system. On the other side, there are many proponents that they should be electronic euro, that there should be electronic dollar. Lately, the Fed said, like, electronic dollar, it's not something that's actually on their agenda. But I think this attitude will change because of the China's advance. And I think Chinese are actually saying that they want to make it actually go live before Olympic Games or something actually very recent, very, very quick. And in that sense, so what does it do for us? I mean, how we as an activist can use that? The best that I can say, and that's where we are missing Alex's expertise. I know that many organizations doing the grants or sub-grants are now doing through the cryptocurrency. So they're simply just sending the cryptocurrency from one wallet to another wallet, which basically does not assume or recognize any intermediary banks or banks. So you can do it efficiently and quick. That's on the good side. On the bad side, the cryptocurrencies are very volatile. So one day, Bitcoin can be $27,000. The next day, it can be $50,000 or close to zero. So that means that if you want to be safe in using it for a transaction, you need to denominate it quickly into your actual currency in order not to lose. There's been a lot of historical moves on that front. We had collapse of crypto exchanges, I think 2 times so far. This third one, hype, which happened only, and please, Danilo and Chi, join whenever you guys want. I think the recent hype was when we had skyrocketing valuations. It actually went down, but it did not bottom as it used to do. And the one intriguing thing is it did not bottom, even there's been a lot of cracks on it coming from the governments, Chinese, US, now UK, Germany announcing something, but the value is there. It did not go to zero. It's actually holding on about 50 to 60% of its all-time high. So that's giving some of the hints to think about. I'm also reading a lot about, when I was preparing myself for this session, I'm reading that a lot of US institutions are now divesting into the cryptocurrencies, like local municipalities, parts of their portfolios are now in crypto currencies. And then also the question is, like, what are commercial banks going to do? What's going to be the purpose of commercial banks once the big gigantic corporations like Facebook, for example, at some point are allowed or will be allowed to introduce their own cryptocurrencies. Again, it's a manipulation, right? Because the Elon Musk, as a well-known figure, there is one tweet, and then he basically, pushes the whole valuations down, overnight, and so on and so on. But so, in my opinion, it is really interesting to foresee for us, whether we can do some fundraising, and how, probably the people who want to contribute to organizations are much more safe by contributing in crypto than the real money, because it's very difficult to detect it, right? It's difficult to channel where this support is coming from. The organization that I'm part of, which is the first incubator in Serbia, we did this crypto ATM. And so after a few days, we've been invited by the police actually to shut it down, and to give them all the data, for all the people which traded, because some of these people were from the bad backgrounds, meaning like, there were some drug trafficking involvements and so on and so on. And we had these big organized conglomerates of different security forces, fighting the international drug trades and smugglers and so on, which were cracking on them, finding huge chunks of the cryptos and so on. But it's fascinating. We're getting into the era where the opportunities are at a rise. But on the other side, as Chi explained, I'm really, concerned about how can governments utilize that, and what our ways of thinking are, in a form of trying to enforce more of the surveillance over a financial situation. Now, I just want to put one more hint, which I think we had in the last presentation, which I was hosting, which was about the hedge funds and their involvements in all of this, especially the US, a huge split within this society, and then influence over the COVID times. But so there is also huge debate: where are we going? What are we going to where we're going to hit the major international crisis, a financial crisis that we have never seen because of the huge printouts of the money. Every government is now doing this helicopter money called, which is printing and just pumping the money into financial systems, and then without any backing. So, there are many new stage, I would say, celebrities on YouTube. You guys, can go and check for yourself. These new experts on the cryptos, which are saying like this is the safe hedging against inflation, against depreciation. And then on the other side, you have people saying like that's probably going to reach the new heights, and so this is the way that we can keep our organizations, deposit safe, and so on and so on. So I guess I don't have all the answers, and I guess this is much bigger than I am at the moment, guys. And I think it is for each one of us to think through. I just hope, and if any of you participants, or people present have any good example, please come up and share with us. But so far, in the midst out of Alex, this is the best that I could do. And I hope that I just open up some of the, perspectives and some of the challenges that we are probably going to be facing. But I'm sure that the Canvas Summer Academy is going to be focusing on it in the future very closely and much more. And these topics that you guys have just elaborated, Chi and Danilo, I mean, these are really great. And what I'm reading from our comments and chat, these are super interesting to our people over here and activists. And I think probably in the future, we are going to go more in depth with the strict topics to see how we can actually advance on this and unveil these issues much more. But for now, let me see. I mean, are there any questions which arose that we did not cover? Yelena? I'm trying to follow, but so far I think we pretty much covered everything. Expect that we understood that the U.S. States Bill of Rights do not actually include the right to privacy. So probably we're going to be looking for some more support on that one.
Yes, there is a question in Q&A part correlated to the things that you explain about cryptocurrency. Since crypto is having adverse effect on climate change, is there anything we can do when we use crypto to minimize the damage on the planet?
The one thing that I can say about it, I'm really not sure how much of the manipulation that was, and then how much in real it was. I was just reading some research about how much, what is the the energy used for the printout of all this money, and how is this actually, hitting our environment. But what I want to just give you, I want to give you a couple of facts. So far, there is about 18.6 million Bitcoins mined. And the experts are saying that the total to be mined is 21 million. So that's all that it can be mined. And the Bitcoin is presumed as a gold of crypto. The Ether, as a second one, already announced the stop of mining. So they're actually changing the approach. So there is not going to be, they're not going to be like individual miners, but basically people are going to be depositing their Ethers into deposit, and they're going to get something in return. But mining as such is stopping. Now, it is very difficult for me then to say that this is going to contribute to our environment, because the digital environment is exploding in terms of the cloud and managed services, which are requiring huge installations of hardware, huge consumption of the energy. And I just think that the global program towards regulating the data centers, and by the way, guys, keep in mind, data centers are huge investments now. It's intriguing that on one side, we have these big banks, investment banks going against the crypto, but on the other side, they're financing with billions and almost hundreds of billions now, huge data centers, and they're investing a lot of money into capacity to mine, process, and do everything in relation to digital, which is requiring energy. So I think we're basically, facing huge dilemma, and that's going to be something to discuss. On the top to what Chi said, the huge amount of data that we are just getting, like from surveillance systems, from AI, from like open data systems, it is requiring so much more capacity for processing, which is definitely having impact on the energy consumption and everything in relation to that. Go ahead, Chi.
I was going to say, people are concerned about, the energy consumption and hydropower. And that was one of the reasons why China, cited as reason for why it was forbidding or, cracking down on the crypto mining in China. But then I just read in the news that New York, was it the mayor of New York or governor, I can't remember who it was, but one of the American politician, and he said, well, if China is, banning or cracking down on crypto mining, come over to the US. We have the facility, we have the energy, and it's going to help boost our local economy. So I don't know, like you, I have my reservations about cryptocurrency, but I guess because I'm biased, whatever China is saying no good for you, I kind of question why not. And I think the other reason why people are not totally into cryptocurrency right now is just because of what happened with the pipeline in America, right? When the bad guys can use cryptocurrency as a means for ransom, and I think that Nero, would back me up on this about ransomware. And now they're using cryptocurrency, for transfer of, ransom money and all of that. So there's a little dark side to, well, sorry for the pun, but
there's a lot of the dark side to that.
Yeah.
So the questions coming from the panel, like do we think that the cryptocurrency is going to be the next currency? Look, guys, I think that's not a million, that's $1 trillion question at the moment, and I think everybody would love to see that, especially the professional bankers. But what I believe for sure is that all of the currencies are moving towards that, and I think all the national currencies are going to go in some form of crypto. And at this point, this is something which is having so much of trading, which no one believed it's possible. Just imagine. I think that Ether at the moment has about $250 billion investment into it, which is the second largest. I don't know how Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin is close to $1 trillion. So it's amazing that these alternative exchanges are having so much of activities going on and through. And for me, as an activist, what is fascinating is that activists, they themselves can actually come up with alternative, institutional almost substitutions for the inefficient governmental projects, like paper money. So in that sense, I believe it's to be seen, it's to be followed. And for us, there is a value in trying to adopt. And I think that the CSOs are the first adopters and in early adopters. And in that sense, I believe that maybe, there are some systems around fundraising, about operations, which could be interesting. I mean, to give you the hint, I mean, I think that, correct me guys if I'm correct, but I believe that either WhatsApp or Viber are operating on a blockchain technology. So the use of that is going to be widening and widening. Cool. So anything else that you guys want to add? any recommendations, final closings? Chi, Danilo?
Are we still on crypto?
No,
or
I'm
anything in
general
general?
correlation or topics that we have discussed.
Oh, okay.
Because we are about to close. I think it's time to get this session to an end. I gave you guys much more space because the Alex was missing, so I just wanted I didn't want it to stop you. But any final set of recommendations, Chi? Like, are you optimist or pessimist in respect to AI surveillance? Like, is there anything that we can do? Any lights?
Yeah, I think I saw one of the questions there about which NGO or movement out there against mass surveillance, and which one should we support. I think I would take that question to a more general context. I think if there are activists who are in this chat right now, one of the things that I would suggest you do is to try and help either yourself or your friends, families, people around you, your fellow activists, to become more aware of this threat, and whether you can find look up local NGOs in your area or your region or your country, and try to reach out to them. There are certainly over 117 organizations I know in Europe and in North America that are working on this. We're trying to build, a digital surveillance team, and we are part of a research team that would, read, catch and update on what new tools are out there, and how we're going to get people together to advocate to our own local governments to have legislative policies or some kind of oversee body, to at least somebody to regulate this, because just like crypto right now is just booming everywhere, people are having a hard time to catch up with what's happening. So we need to be one step ahead, and of course governments are powerful and they have resources at their disposal, but I do believe, and I'm optimistic, that if we start doing something, and we start right now, there will be some steps ahead of us that we can try to at least slow them down or protect our own rights a little bit better. Okay.
Thank you, Chi. So I understand that what we need to do, we need to get ahead of the curve, and we are a little bit behind right now, to put everything in a simple words, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Chi, very much. I mean, and thanks for your offer to share your presentation with our participants. I think we'll all appreciate that so much. Danilo?
Well, I would say, as maybe not to end it on a pessimistic terms, but realistically speaking, the digital security or cybersecurity is the game of the resources. Let's not pretend. Let's make it more expensive to our adversaries to get our data. So the more expensive we make it, the less likely they're going to go. We are in charge of our own security, like our behavior, the things that we do. They're human, they're not technological. Technology is not panacea, it's the tool. So again, to repeat that, and just to give you one example, like, people talk about the tools, this, that, and then activist has like a bootleg, software on a computer for the operating system, and there is a keylogger. And then he applies like all encryption possible tools, but there is a keylogger on his computer. I mean, like, it kills the purpose. So anyway, the bottom line is, it is a game of the resources. We need to be vigilant. Always invest in your knowledge, educate yourself, follow. There is so many resources out there, read, and then spread the knowledge. I mean, peer-to-peer exchange, raising awareness for the organizations, security is organizational. It requires strategic approach. It requires organizational thinking, as some of the things that Canvas is teaching activists worldwide in terms of the campaigning or organizing in any way. Same goes with the digital security, hand in hand. It needs to be tackled. It needs to be planned. You cannot beat the plan without a plan. So invest in yourself. That's the thing. I mean, you don't need to pay anyone to take care of your security. You're perfectly capable to do it for yourself individually. With the organizations, it requires a little bit of tinkering, but it's nothing big. So I know that we are behind the curve when it comes to the resources, because some of those governments are quite powerful. Those are powerful players that penetrate serious players. I mean, as we saw it just like last end of the 2020, Sunburst and the other Microsoft Exchange server breach, those are like huge cyber attacks. They're like gigantically enormous. So those are the enemies, quite capable. So let's make it very expensive for them to meddle with our data, and we can do that. I'm quite positive.
Danilo, thank you for your optimism, and I appreciate very much the attitudes, of us being capable of dealing with it by ourselves. Thank you so much. I think this is the most that we can get, and all that we needed to hear, at least, if nothing else. But we had so superficial data from you, guys. Thank you so much. I mean, this has been super interesting. I mean, these hour and 30 minutes flew so much. I doubt that we have had, the same problems as usual gigs in online, like getting too slow and in terms of the interaction. I learned so much, at least from both of you, and I hope we'll actually open up discussion of the crypto. I've tried to and gave best of myself to get it a bit closer than basically from what I was reading about it, and hope to have ability to get this topic back again. So this was the last session for this year, Canvas Summer Academy. I want to thank all of our participants, all of our speakers. It's been fascinating discussion, and I'm appreciating comments in the chat going on. So thank you guys so much. I want to thank my team. I think it's been a lot of work, and it's been great second season. Both Jelenas for facilitating, Breza, Anna the DJ, whose disco taste I appreciate the most, and of course Sergio, who actually led the most of these sessions. So all of you guys, team, thank you so much. It's been great. As said, hopefully the COVID is going to allow us, and our behavior, it's going to allow us to meet in person next year and make this more different, more intense dynamic than what Zoom allows us to do. So thank you so much. All the greetings from Kopaonik, from Serbia. Thank you all, guys. And so for sure we are going to be sending and exchanging all the data, all the presentations. And stay safe, stay good, and please let us know what you think about all of these topics. Write to us, communicate with us, and we'll do the best of us to get back and to even reach this to the new heights. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks. Stay safe.
Anna, I think music for the end. I mean, that's what we are looking for.
I will do my best.
I want to.
Stop
You did very well so far. Thank you.